Commerce Committee to order. Our first item of business, we do have a quorum. Our first item of business is approval of our minutes from February 1st, 2023. Vice Chair Katiza-Watoon, would you like to make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move approval of the minutes from February 1st.
Vice Chair Katiza-Watoon moves approval of the minutes from February 1st, 2023. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails and the minutes are approved. Our first bill on the agenda is House File 1266 from Representative Frederick. Welcome to the committee, Representative Frederick. I will move House File 1266 be laid over for further consideration. Representative Frederick, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Committee. My voice isn't necessarily friendly with me this morning, so I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible. So what House File 1266 is looking to do is to continue the reporting that's been going on for many years. Different petroleum marketers have gotten different grant money over the last decade-ish. And part of that money then means that they had to do reporting of how much biofuels is being sold. And some of the timelines that was established under those grant programs are coming to an end. And so since Minnesota has been a leader with biofuels, this is just a bill that seeks to continue some of that reporting data so we can make informed decisions going forward. And that's the nuts and bolts of it, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Representative Frederick. There were no amendments nor testifiers who signed up to testify. Are there any members of the public wishing to testify to the bill? Seeing none, member questions and discussion. Any discussion to the bill? Seeing none, any closing comments, Representative Frederick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to point out that I have talked with the Department of Commerce too. They did have a couple technical fixes that they are looking to fix in the final product, and so I understand this bill is being laid over. So any language that this committee would like to change in the future, I'm supportive of.
And for the committee's knowledge, it's the chair's intention to take up this bill again after Representative Frederick's had a chance to talk with the department and come up with an amendment. If you do have changes or questions, I would encourage you to be in touch with him, but we will be taking the bill up again before deadline. And with that, thank you, Representative Frederick. The bill's laid over. The next bill on the agenda is House File 797, Representative Tabke. Representative Tabke, would you like to move your bill?
Yes, Chair. I would like to lay House File 797 over for future consideration.
Representative Tabke moves that House File 797 be laid over for further consideration. Representative Tabke, to your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this bill is a pretty simple bill that works on behalf of laborers and so folks who are getting warranty work done on their vehicles. What happens is there are different rates paid for different amounts of money paid for warranty work that is getting done, whether it and that is different than what you or I that go into dealership to have work done would get paid. So what this does is it levels out that playing field between the two so that there are so everyone is getting paid fair wages for what is getting done. And I have a few testifiers, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Tabke. And I do see that we have Ms. Backus at the booth, and she's not the first on my list, but maybe we'll start with her if that makes sense. So we'll go to Ms. Backus. State your name for the record and proceed your testimony.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Amber Backus, and I'm here on behalf of the Minnesota Automobile Dealers Association and our 375 new car and truck members, the majority of which are family-owned, multi-generation businesses that employ almost 20,000 Minnesotans. Our member dealerships are not owned by the automakers. They are independently owned franchises that have made significant capital investments to represent the brands they sell. To ensure there's some parity in the relationship between our local dealers and the big national and international automakers, and that Minnesota consumers have protections when purchasing motor vehicles, in 1981, the state enacted ADE, which regulates motor vehicle sales and distribution. Within that statute, the legislature addressed the issue of warranty work and safety recalls by requiring that, quote, "The reimbursement for warranty services shall not be less than the rate charged by the dealer for like service to non-warranty customers for non-warranty service and repairs." That's a mouthful, but essentially that means the automakers are supposed to pay the same rate retail customers would pay for repairs to prevent corners from being cut. But since the statute wasn't explicit, the automakers found ways to underpay the dealers. In 2018, we shored up the law and laid out a specific formula in statute to ensure the automakers meet their obligations and pay retail rates for warranty work, meaning dealers are reimbursed at a labor rate equal to retail and at a part rate equal to those sold at retail. But unfortunately, due to objections from the automakers, that legislation failed to address the amount of time it takes to do a repair, which is the other important part of this calculation. So we've seen the automakers trying to limit their financial exposure by reducing the amount of labor they will pay for, effectively eroding the fair labor rate achieved by the 2018 amendment to the law. And that's why House File 797 is before you today, to stop the automakers from minimizing their financial exposure on the backs of our technicians. I have a handout with a handful of examples, and I think that's being passed out right now, many of which were collected from our members, and that demonstrate the disparity between the production hours retail customers pay versus what the automakers will reimburse the dealers for. And it also shows an example of how when a repair becomes subject to recall, the hours are slashed even further to reduce their financial liability. Now, I've heard that the factory lobbyists are describing this bill as a, quote, dealer money grab, and that our members won't pass on the increased reimbursement to our technicians. This is absolutely offensive and couldn't be farther from the truth. Our collective bargaining agreements with our Teamster and Machinist partners already say that we won't pay less than the time manual says. So we need the automakers to accept the manuals that they should already be recognizing due to their statutory obligation to pay retail rates. And with me today, I have Tom Glansman, Service Director at North Country Ford, to discuss how cutting the time impacts the recruitment and retention of automotive technicians and his employees. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Next, so Mr. Glansman.
Yeah, good afternoon.
State your name for your record. Proceed.
Yeah,
your
my name is
testimony.
Tom Glansman, and I'm with North Country Ford, part of Luther Group. I've been in the automotive business for about 40 years, and one of the biggest impacts that I see is that throughout time, with the extensions of manufacturers with warranties being longer than they were years ago, that we're doing a much more warranty work than we were in the past. I would say that probably 65% of the repairs we do on vehicles today are warranty, and 35% are customer pay repairs. So how does it impact us? It's hard to retain people because they're not working for the full potential wages that they should be earning. So, I mean, I don't know if I should get into time, because they work on a flat rate system. So if a job pays 2 hours to complete and they do it in an hour's time, they only get paid an hour. So if it, it could be the other way around as well. So it's hard to retain people when not many people are wanting to get into this business based on what their earnings could be. So it's quite impactful for us. What else do I have here?
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next, we have Rick Carlson from Teamsters Local 974. If you want to come forward, state your name for the record, proceed your testimony. Welcome to the committee.
My name is Rick Carlson. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and for allowing me to testify in front of the committee. Committee, I'm a master certified technician. My pay is my pay is based on production and the efficiency of the hours I produce. We are looking at compensation for warranty labor must equal customer pay warranty repair work. Labor hours based on 10 tenths. So a tenth is every 6 minutes. I'll give you an example of what we deal with. Right now I have a recall campaign that pays 2 tenths, which is 12 minutes. It takes 9 minutes to do the download. And I haven't completed the paperwork, I haven't completed the job, I haven't done the paperwork, and I haven't parked the car. That's not including me getting the car or anything like that. Production is based on efficiency with variables involved. It's very difficult to be efficient with the current warranty times allowed. I've had 36 years' experience with multiple manufacturers, and the warranty times have gotten progressively unrealistic. We can't keep up with the warranty labor times. These labor times are not in line with the service manual. For example, we have a XM radio antenna that we have to put in. Under warranty, it pays us $1,400. In the repair, if you follow the service manual repair, it tells you you have to take the headliner out. Well, if you go back and look and see what a headliner pays, the headliner pays 2.4 hours. So how do you make it work when you're getting chopped an hour right out of the box? We've had a warranty extension for pistons. It started off with 12.8 hours, and it went to 11.8 hours. Customer pay is 19.1 hours. And we're trying to, how do you do that? And another one, we have a purge valve. It pays 4/10. We get paid 1/7 for it. It pays 4/10, and I have to diagnose it, replace it, and perform a test that takes 15 minutes. Now, if you do the math, 24 minutes in 15 minutes doesn't leave you a lot of time to fix it. So it's kind of one of those things where you try to be as efficient as you can. In conclusion, I think you understand we need your support and look forward to helping the Minnesota workforce. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to the committee today.
Yep.
Appreciate your testimony. Next, we have Grant Whalen, Machinist District Lodge number 77. Please come forward, state your name for the record, proceed to your testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Grant Whalen. I'm a member of District Lodge 77 under the Machinist Union. My dealership that I work for is covered under the St. Paul Auto Dealers contract. I've been in the business for 7 years now, and some of the things that a lot of people forget is, dealers, how they get paid from manufacturers is different. But we get paid flat rate, which a lot of people are like, oh, is that like hourly? Is that salary? No, it's literally, if you don't get the work done in the amount of time that you're given, that's all you're getting paid, whether you were there for more hours or not. That's just point blank period, that's it. So it's kind of hard with how warranty labor times are compared to customer pay labor times. Engine replacement on a certain vehicle that I work on under warranty pays 17.4 hours. Under customer pay, or what a customer would pay if they came in outside of warranty, pays over 25 hours. Another one, fuel injectors under warranty. On a certain make and model, they pay 2.6 hours under warranty. Under what a customer would pay is 5.6. The list goes on and on. Pistons, like on this make and model I have is 10.9 on a certain car I would work on, but customer pay is almost 18. The gap is just, it's so hard to where if you're working on warranty vehicles, you work twice as hard. So, it comes down to warranty labor times creating more of a disparage of technicians out there to where less and less people want to work for manufacturers and just work in the independent industry because they can already get what we're not getting for everything. They don't have to worry about warranty labor times. And if there's less people that want to work at the manufacturers and at the dealerships, that leaves more people like myself that there's less of already to do all the excess warranty work for the less time that's there. It's more of an issue on the floor level, just people not, getting taken care of or feeling appreciated as well, based off the time. So, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Now, we do have two members of the public who signed up to testify, and I have a note here that they're coming up together. It's Jeff Perry from General Motors and David Bright from the Alliance for Automotives. Come forward, please. Just state your name for the record and proceed to your testimony. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Bright. I'm a senior attorney at the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We're the trade association that represents automobile manufacturers and component suppliers who. Thank you. Much appreciated. Who combine to produce roughly 98% of the automobiles sold in the United States each year. I appreciate the committee welcoming me today to explain our concerns with this bill, which, to be blunt, would require automobile manufacturers to pay dealers tens of millions of dollars per year in the state of Minnesota. And it would be a law that would make Minnesota a considerable outlier in the United States relative to what other states have done in their franchise laws. The simple fact is that automobile manufacturers do compensate dealers fairly for warranty work. We pay dealers at the same hourly rate at which they charge the retail public. And then we know exactly how many hours of their labor we need to purchase. And we know that because we've done every single repair in the book. We've timed it in an objective, reliable manner to know exactly how many hours it takes and exactly how many hours we need to purchase. Now, manufacturers have no interest in undercompensating dealers. So if a dealer is doing a warranty repair and either a customer's vehicle takes extra time for whatever reason, or even if the dealer thinks that the time guide is wrong, we have processes in place to remedy both of those problems. The dealer can request extra time and also request a review of the time guide. What this bill does is allow a dealer to demand to be compensated under what we in the industry call third-party time guides. These are guides that are not meant for dealer mechanics. These are guides that are meant for independent repair shops, mechanics who work on a variety of cars rather than specialize in a particular brand. They don't have special tools that a dealer would have. And they're also working on vehicles that are older and out of warranty. So these are going to be higher mileage vehicles. They're going to have wear, rust, damage, all sorts of other things that would likely cause those vehicles to need extra time. So what I'm getting at is this is very much an apples and oranges comparison. And in fact, even the publishers of these third-party time guides will admit that their products are not meant to be used for warranty work. They're completely separate products. One other thing to make very clear here, manufacturers do not pay technicians. They're not our employees. They're the employees of the dealer. How the dealer chooses to compensate those mechanics is entirely up to them. We have no say in that. The other thing to make clear is that even if a dealer is compensating its mechanics under a third-party time guide, that doesn't actually mean that the mechanics are spending that number of hours on a repair. The time guide may say this repair takes 3 hours. If the technician only works 2 hours, the customer still gets billed 3 hours, even though there's only 2 hours of work done on it. That's the key difference here is we know exactly how many hours we need to purchase because we've actually measured it. These third-party time guides, they're meant for estimates. They're not meant for billing. And so by allowing Minnesota to become an outlier on this, it's going to drive up costs considerably, which, as you know, ultimately gets passed down to the consumer in the form of higher vehicle prices, which we think is an unfortunate outcome. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today and voice the industry's concerns with this bill. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if the committee has none, I can yield the floor to Mr. Perry.
Mr. Perry, if you have testimony now would be an appropriate time.
Good afternoon, Chair Stephenson, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Perry. I represent General Motors. Here to give you our thoughts and comments on House File 797. Let me begin by saying what is otherwise obvious is that this bill amounts to an attempt on the part of the Minnesota dealers and the Teamsters Union to use the state legislature in Minnesota to enact legislation that will dramatically increase our warranty costs and expenses that we must pay our dealers, thereby forcing us to pay for a contract agreement that they've just reached among themselves. This particular issue of wages and benefits falls strictly within the National Labor Relations Act, and it's been held by the Supreme Court that the National Labor Relations Act mandates that this go through collective bargaining and is thereby preempts state legislation in this field when it directly relates to the wages and benefits of the technicians that are represented by a national labor union. In addition to that, in 2019, the 8th Circuit Federal Court, to which Minnesota belongs, ruled that similar legislation in North Dakota regarding warranty reimbursement unconstitutionally impairs the contracts between equipment manufacturers and dealers and amounts to a violation of the Contracts Clause of the United States Constitution. Now, as concerning as all of those issues are, and obviously there are many that we have serious concerns with, there's many business reasons that my colleague David started talking about. Some of the more specific points that I guess that he made, that the dealers, manufacturers are not the employer of the technicians. We do not pay them. We don't set their rates. We don't know what their rates are set at by the dealer or have any influence over that. What we do know is that the dealers submit to us monthly and quarterly operating reports that tell us in their own numbers from their accountants what their businesses are doing. And I can speak on behalf of the General Motors dealers in the state of Minnesota. We polled all of the data between 2018 and 2022. And that data indicates that GM dealers in Minnesota are making a gross profit of 74% on their warranty labor. And that includes with increasing profit margins throughout the COVID pandemic. And compare that to an average gross profit of 72% for customer pay work, customer pay labor. So putting that into some mathematical numbers, essentially what that means is that for every $100 of labor that the technician is generating for the dealer is keeping 74 of those dollars and only giving 26 to the technician. There's clearly room for the dealers to give more and not blame the manufacturers for the technicians not getting paid enough. In addition to that, as David said, we certainly want to and do pay for every hour that a technician works on a vehicle for warranty. If for some reason our time guides are inaccurate or inadequate to cover the time, maybe some special circumstance comes up and they need additional time, we have a robust process that allows dealers to simply point and click within a communications app that we have to simply ask for more time. And in fact, the majority of our service managers in this state are self-authorized and empowered to grant themselves that additional labor time. Unfortunately, we don't know where that money goes once they ask for it. And if they're not passing it through to the technicians, we can't control that. And there's nothing in this legislation that will change that. The proposed changes overall are likely to impose significant unjustified costs on the manufacturers, as I mentioned, in the range of 30 to 50% increases in our warranty expense for warranty times that we believe are accurate and justified. And as David pointed out, the third-party time guide publishers themselves under testimony, sworn testimony, I believe you all have a copy of one of the affidavits from Motors Publishing, have indicated their times are only estimates. They are not time measured scientifically with a stopwatch, and those times are only to be used for estimating purposes, not for actual charges to a customer. What we know from NADA, the National Auto Dealers Association, in a monthly dealer commentary that is aimed at educating their member dealers on best practices in the service department, they instructed that it would be, in normal circumstances, a dealer should be able to beat warranty times by 25%, indicating a shop efficiency of 125%. Customer pay work, they should be able to beat by 135% efficiency. And what that means in lay terms is that if a customer is that customers are regularly being billed 35% more labor time than the technician is actually spending working on the car. Typically, what that means is when they finish working on the car, they still have extra time. They'll start working on another car and begin billing that car at the same time they're still billing the first car. That's what we want to avoid as manufacturers. Not avoiding paying the time that's actually spent on the car. We don't believe we should have to pay for time that they're not actually working on our cars, and we shouldn't have to pay for time that's being double and triple billed on other vehicles. In addition to all of that, one thing I will point out is a lot of times the dealers have said that we're not doing enough to help them maintain the technicians. And I would absolutely say that we're doing everything in our power to help them maintain and retain those technicians in their shops, keep them from leaving. We're paying dealers a labor rate on average between 3.5 and 4 times more than they're paying through to their technicians as an average pay rate. And in addition to that, GM is currently in its second year of an industry-first technician excellence program that rewards technicians for being fully trained. And so it encourages them to be a fully trained technician, top tier. And to do that, GM is providing $6,000 in bonuses that are paid out annually to the technician, directly to the technician. The dealer is encouraged to match that program up to $6,000, so the technician could earn up to $12,000 each year that they retain their training.
Mr. Perry, I'm sorry to interrupt. We did ask the other testifiers to limit their testimony to about 2 minutes.
Okay.
I don't know if that was communicated to you or not. In any case, I've let you go way beyond 2 minutes.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
I'm not cutting you off right now, but if you could just try to
I'm wrapping it up on
close
that
up.
point.
It's mostly
Yeah.
out of interest of fairness to everybody else who we did ask to limit their testimony to 2 minutes.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm just wrapping up on that point then. So the program also gives the technicians $1,500 in lease cash to help bring down the price of a lease, and will pay $500 towards the purchase of their tools. The dealers are encouraged to match and participate in this program. The dealers in Minnesota are only enrolled at a 77% rate. 53% of those that are enrolled do not match, and 10% of those that are enrolled have not enrolled or registered a single technician. So we're doing everything that we can in our power. We're paying them for every hour that they work. We've given them empowerment to ask for more time. If there's anything that's left on the table here, the dealers need to be sharing more of what they're getting from us with their technicians. And with that, I'll conclude my testimony. Thank you for the
Mr.
extra
Perry. I
time.
appreciate it. There's no one else who signed up to testify, so now I'll ask, and you guys can step down. I'll ask, are there any members of the public who wish to testify to this bill? Seeing none, we'll move to member discussion and questions. Representative Driscoll.
Mr. Chair, I want to thank you for laying this bill over. My experience on the Commerce Committee is no bill before its time. And whenever we have two parties that have completely different views on this and they bring it to the legislature and ask the legislature to make a decision, the resulting decision is not favorable to one or both parties at the end of the day. So giving these folks an opportunity perhaps to step away from this and come to an agreement and come back with an amendment to this committee that we can consider is wise on your part to look at doing it that way. I also believe that moving it forward today would have been disastrous, because if there was an agreement, it'd be on the House floor, and we'd be doing committee work on the floor, doing an amendment of some nature that very few people, this group and this committee, would find germane and find, dare I say, interesting to discuss on the floor. And so keeping it here in the committee, I think, gives people a chance to take some time and work on it. It's in keeping with what my experience has been with both Republican and Democrat chairs. So congratulations, Mr. Chair. I think that's a very wise move.
Well, Representative Driscoll, I hate to like undermine your compliment in me, but I just want to be clear that we are not laying the bill over today until there is an agreement between the parties. It would be wonderful if the parties would reach an agreement, and you are correct that is something we often do in this committee, which is tease up an issue and ask the people to come to an agreement and come back to us when you have an agreement. We are laying the bill over today because there's some additional amendment work that needs to be done that we weren't able to conclude in a time that would have given everyone on the committee adequate notice of the amendment. So in the spirit of the way that you and I have operated over the last 3 years, the decision was taken to lay over the bill. It's not coming back on Wednesday. I don't know if it's coming back necessarily next week. But I just want to be clear that an agreement of the parties, in my mind, is not a precondition for committee action on this bill. Certainly don't want to stop or people from talking, encourage people to talk, but, and if there's a deal, that's great. But that is not going to be a precondition for us coming back, and I apologize if that was miscommunicated. But Representative Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not saying that, you're the chair, you can decide the reasons you want to lay the bill over or move the bill forward. I'm just suggesting that this provides ample opportunity for two parties that appear to be on different and opposing sides to this to have an opportunity to work it out, or the legislature will. And I have seen this time and time again where it does not work out well and it does not look good at the end of the day, because guess what? Next year, we're back with another one of the parties saying, well, I got to tweak this, I got to tweak that, this was overreach, that was that. We should do our due diligence and make sure that we get things right. And you will determine how much time the parties have in order to be able to do that based on the amendment work and when you choose to bring the bill back. But my strong encouragement to the parties would be, if a deal can be had, work it out yourselves, bring it back to the committee, peace in the valley. Otherwise, the legislature will impugn something which one or both parties at the end of the day typically is not happy.
Well, I don't get to say this enough. I agree with everything that Representative Driscoll just said.
Mr. Chair, there is hope.
There is hope. Yeah. Representative Katiza-Watum.
Thank you, Chair. I have two quick questions, I think. The first one, I believe, is for Mr. Bright. So you had talked about the timing of the warranty hours that are currently paid for. One of the other testifiers had mentioned this 0.2 of an hour payment on one of the processes that he was working on. He did then mention that 75% of that time, 9 minutes of the 12 minutes that was going to be paid for, was downloading time for whatever if it's diagnostic, if it's downloading new technology that's a part of the repair. I don't totally understand all of the behind the scenes stuff, but I'm curious, is that 75% of the time, is it not included in the manufacturer's time guidelines because the manufacturer has that download already downloaded? I'm 75% of the time that's being paid for being used to download information that is necessary to that process. It doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just kind of curious where it doesn't line up.
Mr. Bright.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, the answer to your question is that the manufacturer time guide includes everything. It's time to bring the vehicle in from the lot. It's time to prepare the vehicle to be worked on. It even includes things like bathroom breaks and smoke breaks. So everything that needs to be done to repair a car, that's going to be in the manufacturer's time guide. And again, if there's ever a situation where either because of a slow internet connection in that case or whatever the problem may be, manufacturers have safeguards in place to make sure that dealers do not get undercompensated. Because again, we don't want to undercompensate, we also don't want to overcompensate. So the time guides are built around, one, a fair amount of time, an amount of time that should be able to be beaten easily by a competent mechanic. And again, a remedy in place in case there ever is a situation where the time guide is insufficient.
Representative Katiza-Watum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my next question, I think, might be for Ms. Backus. Just on the difference between the customer pay and the warranty time guides, or what's actually, what customers are actually paying for. One of the other testifiers mentioned the flat rate pay. And so I'm curious whether or not whether it's a common situation or if it never ever happens, are customer pay customers potentially being overcharged at a rate, so then this could help even out what you're receiving or what the dealership is receiving from the manufacturer in order to pay the technicians?
Ms. Backus.
Sure, Mr. Chair and Representative Katiza-Watum. I don't think I'm quite in the position to answer that because every job is so different. Every brand has a difference in terms of how much warranty work is required and how much isn't. I just know that the average is that about 30% of 25 to 30% of a dealership's work, and that's taking all the different franchises or all the different manufacturers into consideration, can be warranty work. So when that much of it is underwater, it's hard to make up that difference. But I know our dealers are trying to do what they can. I know that some do offer, above and beyond the warranty to try to make them whole when possible. But again, if you're being underpaid that often on the hours, that's sometimes hard to do.
Representative Katiza-Watum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just trying to sort out whether or not moving forward with a proposal such as this, where it would balance out if Minnesota consumers are currently maybe overpaying in order to offset that discrepancy, if that could save Minnesotans some money in the long run on their customer pay.
I appreciate
orders.
that. Thank you.
Representative Kraft.
Mr. Chair, I think I have a question for Mr. Bright and then the individual from GM, I think.
Mr. Bright and Mr. Perry, I believe, can come down. Representative Kraft.
Okay, so, Mr. Perry coming down. So I will preface this by saying I'm a new member of the Commerce Committee, and I don't have much historical exposure to the structure of your industry. But was I right in hearing that you represent 98% of the vehicles that are sold in the United States? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, that's correct. Our manufacturer members combined sell roughly 98% of the vehicles sold in the United States.
Okay.
Representative Kraft.
Mr. Chair, so then this, the folks on the other side, this is your sales channel. Is that correct?
Right.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, manufacturers, the ones that I represent, all rely on independent franchise dealers to sell products to consumers. We do not sell a single car directly to customers.
So this is your sales.
Representative Kraft.
So this is your sales channel then? A sales channel of yours?
Right.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, they are the only sales channel, and again, they are independent businesses from manufacturers.
Representative Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question, and this is kind of a high-level question, how do you get so far out of sync with your sales channel? And are you claiming here that you're entirely pure on this, that there's no, that they're the ones entirely in the wrong, that you've done nothing wrong in this? Is that what you're claiming?
Mr. Bright.
Mr. Chair, Representative, I do not believe manufacturers have done anything wrong on this point. I do believe that manufacturers and car dealers are reliant upon each other for mutual success because, as you said, they are our distribution channel. If they do not succeed, then we do not succeed, and vice versa. Again, we recognize that warranty reimbursement is an important part of a dealer's financials. Generally speaking, we are the dealer's largest volume customer for service work. And despite being that largest customer, one that has a steady supply of business, that the dealer does not have to expend any money on advertising or customer retention to get, we pay the same amount of money that they charge the retail public. In fact, arguably more because of the way that the Minnesota statute is constructed. The calculated rate, the parts markup rate, is arguably higher than what anyone off the street would pay. So again, we understand this is an important part of the dealer's business. It's also an important part of our business. It's a huge cost driver for us. And we think that in the interest of our mutual success, that the amount that we pay should be accurate. We should be paying the exact number of hours that we are purchasing.
Representative Kraft.
No, I think that's it.
Representative Cleburne.
Thank you, and this is also to the GM team. And Representative Tabke, please forgive me, this is a little bit off topic of your bill, but still on your bill. So I'm sitting here listening to this and hearing how we need to save GM and all of the auto manufacturers a lot of money. But at the exact same time, you are telling us, the Commerce Committee, right, that is charged with making sure that consumers are well protected in the state of Minnesota, that you are the largest volume customer for auto dealers. Now, to me, warranty means that customers have purchased something that is not functioning. It's not working as you've promised. So you have to come in and fix whatever it is that you have sold to Minnesotans in good faith. So how is it, I mean, I'm going back to Vice Chair Katiza-Watoon's question. You are saying that you are doing portal-to-portal time payments to these dealers, right? That's the old labor expression. As soon as you hit the door, to the time it's out the door, right, to do the job. But 12 minutes, when something takes a 9-minute download, gives the auto dealer 3 minutes, to your words, to get the car from the parking lot into the bay, do the repair, get it out of the bay, go to the bathroom, eat food, and all of this is supposed to happen in 12 minutes. That just doesn't seem right to me when I think about just show me the flow. Just show me the flow of the work. So it seems a little tight, I would say. So those are things I want you to think about as we are looking at this bill. Our job is not to save General Motors a great deal of money. Our job is to make sure that Minnesotans are well provided for. And so I just want you to think about that. Thank you.
Representative Dotson.
Thank you, Chair Stevens. And maybe this might be more for the Teamsters Union, but the question I would have, I guess I'm not certain.
You can step down and
Thank you.
if you have a question, leave the testifier from the Teamsters Union just while you're asking so they can make up as Rick Carlson. Mr. Carlson, if you could come forward. Go ahead, Representative Dotson.
And maybe this is just more for educational from my side. Is have you ever taken a position in regards to, let me just write down my question, taken a position on a franchise bill in the past? Have the union ever taken a position?
We've been trying to get this passed for 5 years.
And I'm sorry, did you testify earlier?
I'm sorry.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
I'm Paul McCullen, Secretary Treasurer and Principal Officer of Local 974. I apologize for that.
That's okay, but we just want to get the record correct. So, Mr. Representative Dotson.
So for the last 5 years, so do you have a contract with the dealers right now, or?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And then Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this because, frankly, I agree with Representative O'Driscoll that this is an issue of private contract negotiations, and the participants, the parties in that contract negotiation should both fulfill the obligations of the contracts they've signed or negotiate in good faith. But I just want to point out a couple of things. You know, I mean, and I appreciate the comments, but Representative Kraft suggested that there was right and wrong involved here. You know, do the manufacturers really think that they haven't done anything wrong? And I think this isn't a matter of right or wrong for us to determine. This is a matter of private contract negotiations that, frankly, is a little odd that we are engaging in at all. And I would also add, you know, sort of a strange example, you know, suggesting that the testifiers were suggesting that in 12 minutes, that's supposed to cover the repair, a bathroom break, a smoke break. That's not at all what was being suggested by the testifier. That's a pretty strange misrepresentation that all of those things are supposed to happen in 12 minutes. Clearly, that's taken on the whole. I mean, it's not in those 12 minutes that they're supposed to do all of these things. So it's just, I just think that the conversation is a little imbalanced when it comes to this bill, but I'm glad that we are laying it over so that the additional amendments, additional work can be done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Niska.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was also confused about that kind of history. And so I would be really interested if maybe the auto dealers and maybe the manufacturers could give us a little bit of an understanding of why the state is involved in this in the first place, rather than having this being, I understand that there's part of that pre-exists the bill that's before us, but a little bit of an understanding of why.
What I would say is that franchise agreements between dealers and manufacturers, there's a great body of law around that. And we, in many ways, regulate the type of contracts that a franchisor and a franchisee can enter into and what the terms can be of that. And so, I mean, we could probably have a very long conversation about the history of franchise law in Minnesota and how we've gotten to the point and why it's necessary to have these types of protections. I'm not sure we have time in committee for that today, Representative Niska. If you have a specific question about the history of this, I'm happy to entertain that. But I mean, I think the franchise law is I'm guessing you are very well aware, is a huge body of law that has a lot of history to it.
I appreciate that. And I was just looking for perhaps possibly a abridged explanation of the ways in which these particular franchise agreements have broken down to the place where we have to, as a legislature, resolve this particular dispute rather than have it be something that's a part of a private contract negotiation.
And Ms. Vasquez, I don't know, is that something that you want to get back to Mr. Niska about that off the record, I'm guessing? Seeing nodding. So maybe that's a conversation that we can have offline. The bill is not being moved today, so we can have that conversation offline on the history. I don't see any Other members seeking recognition, Representative Tabke, I'll give you the chance for closing comment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the great discussion about this bill. It'll come back with some clarification, some work on it that way for everybody. But this is something that's been, Minnesota's been doing since 1981 was the first time that this specific has been put together. So this has been something that Minnesota has been working and tweaking as it goes along, and this is a further tweak to that to make sure that we are making sure everyone's taken care of. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Tabke. And just to be clear about the chair's intention, as I said, the bill will be coming back to committee, I assume. And when it does come back, it sounds like there will be an amendment. We have taken public testimony as to the bill today. So we will not take public testimony as to the bill at the next hearing. If there are people wishing to make comment as to the contents of whatever amendment is offered, I certainly will allow that testimony, but we will not take public testimony to the bill generally the next time it comes up. And so, Representative O'Driscoll, it sounds like maybe you have a question about that.
Just a clarification, members of the committee will be able to debate the amendments.
Of course.
And like, just
Yep.
want to make sure. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
I'm just trying to, we have a lot of public interest in this bill. I just want to make sure that people understand. Today was the opportunity for public testimony, unless you have public testimony to the specific content of whatever amendment comes forward. So with that, the bill is laid over. I'm going to turn the gavel over to Vice Chair Katiza.
Thank you. You as well. Thanks for being here.
Sorry, I just need to get my papers. Do you have an annotated? I'm going to offer. Okay. I just. Okay.
Members, the last bill on the agenda for today is House File 413. Chair Stephenson, once it gets settled, would you like to move your bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to move House File, let's see where we're going next. 413 be recommended to be re-referred to the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee.
Chair Stephenson moves that House File 413 be recommended to be re-referred to the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee. Chair Stephenson, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This bill relates to electric vehicles. And there is a great transition happening in our transportation sector in Minnesota and across the country as electric vehicles are coming, and they're coming fast. And the reason is not difficult to ascertain. Electric vehicles are cleaner, cheaper to own and operate, and as an owner of one, I can tell you, a lot of fun to drive. Every Minnesotan who wants an EV should be able to purchase one. And for a variety of reasons, EVs are still out of reach for many Minnesotans. This bill aims to change that. And I will quickly run through its provisions, but before I do, I just want to take a moment and talk about how the bill came together, because I think it's a great story of how the legislature should work. Several years ago, Governor Walz announced his Clean Cars initiative. I was a big fan, but others were not. And I had lunch with Amber Backus of the Dealers Association, and we had a spirited discussion about the Clean Cars initiative of the governor. But it concluded with us saying, you know, we're not going to convince each other of the merits of our position on clean cars, but how can we move the ball forward? Where can we find a place to cooperate with the mutual goal of making this transition as smooth and beneficial to Minnesotans as possible? So instead of focusing on where we disagreed, we focused on where we agreed. And this bill is the result of that discussion. And I always want to thank Ms. Backus and the dealers for that constructive approach. So just at the top level, the bill does many things. It strengthens existing law to require the state government-owned fleet of vehicles be EVs whenever possible. It requires dealers to get up-to-date training on the fundamentals of EVs. It creates a grant program to help dealers defray the costs they will incur in transitioning to selling EVs. It creates a rebate program to help consumers defray the upfront costs of purchasing new or used EVs. And it reforms our state's utility regulations to empower our electric utilities to help expedite the electrification of the transportation sector. So that is the bill in a nutshell. I know we have some testifiers, so I'll make way for them.
First on the list, we have Brendan Jordan with the Great Plains Institute, followed by Jim Pearson with Excel Energy. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. My name is Brendan Jordan. I'm with the Great Plains Institute, and I facilitate Drive Electric Minnesota. I'll keep my remarks brief, but Drive Electric Minnesota is a state partnership that includes everyone you'd expect to be involved in a state partnership dealing with electric vehicles. It includes automakers, auto dealers, nonprofit organizations, charging companies, utilities of all varieties, local governments, and many others. We support proactive public policy to accelerate electric vehicle adoption and increase availability of EV charging. We feel that EVs are a critical part of our comprehensive decarbonization strategy, in addition to the many other benefits that Chair Stephenson offered in his opening remarks. The fact is that Minnesota lags behind many of our peer states when it comes to EV adoption and investment. The policies in this bill are policies that have worked well in other states and would get us on a better track for embracing this emerging technology. So Drive Electric Minnesota is pleased to support House File 413. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jim Pearson with Excel Energy, and next after him is Amber Backus with the Minnesota Auto Dealers. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Well, good afternoon, members. I am Jim Pearson with Excel Energy, and I appreciate the opportunity to make a few brief comments in support of Representative Stephenson's House File 413. We specifically worked with Representative Stephenson and others around Section 5 of the bill. So as Representative Stephenson said, the bill does many things. Our interest is primarily in Section 5 of the bill, as well as some of the rebate provisions. But I just wanted to briefly comment on two things here. The purpose of Section 5 is really to provide some foundational language. So when we work with our regulators, as well as the Public Utilities Commission, we have sort of the goals and the requirements of transportation electrification plans laid out. We're also moving it to a 3-year process instead of annually, so I think it provides a more comprehensive approach and also extends the timeline a little bit. The second point I'd like to make about utilities and transportation plans is how we see ourselves and what role we play. We obviously have a lot of expertise in infrastructure, and that is a primary focus of ours, but we really see ourselves as a partner. We want to be partnering with policymakers to advance the ball and to provide more opportunities for customers. We want to work with our customers who are interested in adopting the technology, make it easier for them. We want to help them better understand how this all works and how they compare fuel costs and all of the things that go with it. And most importantly, we want to work with our retailers. We've had a long history of businesses, independent businesses in Minnesota, selling fuels to Minnesota consumers for hundreds of years, or for over 100 years. And those dealers and retailers and gas station owners and the like are really important partners in this. And so working with them to try to figure out a way to move the ball forward is very important to us. And when I say that, we really do want to move the ball forward. We want to do it quickly. So it takes quite a commitment to do that, and we're certainly committed to working with our partners to make that happen. So with those brief comments, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Ms. Backus? We'll move to member questions in a little bit. Thank you for your testimony. Introduce yourself again and proceed with your testimony.
Yeah, thank you again for your time. It's Amber Backus with the Minnesota Automobile Dealers Association. Again, we appreciate Representative Stephenson for bringing this bill forward. It was great to sit down with him and find some commonalities on things we can do to help move the market, because there are some significant barriers to EV adoption, including the upfront vehicle price and the cost of electric vehicle infrastructure. And this bill helps to overcome those, but providing consumer rebates and dealership grants. So last year, we sold a record number of EVs in Minnesota at 3.8%, but that's only half as many as dealers will be required to take when the Clean Cars Minnesota rule goes into effect next year. And at the same time, the feds made some changes to their tax policy through the Inflation Reduction Act. That $7,500 federal tax credit for EDs is going to be harder to get as there are new conditions regarding where the minerals were sourced and assembly was required. And this all makes a difference because numerous consumer studies have shown that the upfront price of a vehicle is the #1 factor that influences what a consumer purchases. And due to supply chain disruptions and skyrocketing mineral prices, the gap between the price of EVs and gas-powered vehicles has grown the last few years, with the average price of an EV $18,000 higher than the average gas-powered vehicle. So the $2,500 rebate, or $3,000 for lower-income Minnesotans, contained in Section 6 of the bill, will help overcome the price disparity and should be a boon to EV sales. The experience of other states has borne this out. Those with robust incentive packages have seen their sales increase. When Georgia had a $5,000 EV tax credit on the books, but then it was repealed, EV sales dropped 90% the following year after its repeal. Other states that have done this have seen their sales increase two to four times. And this approach is overwhelmingly supported by Minnesotans, over 70% of both Democrats and Republicans, and can help drive demand, bringing more EV options and leading to lower vehicle costs. The other factor that's limiting availability and making prices higher is there not as much competition in the marketplace because not all dealerships are certified to sell electric vehicles. They must make significant investments and be approved by their manufacturer before they can do so. And this has become a burdensome and costly process. For first-generation EVs, such as the Chevy Volt, a dealer's cost to become EV certified were around $15,000 to $25,000. But with bigger electric vehicles and higher capacity batteries now on the market, the number has increased 20-fold for some makes, with dealers required to make investments of $250,000 to $500,000 to install more expensive Level 3 chargers and larger lifts. In an industry with historically low profit margins, dealers are only going to make this investment, one, if they have the resources, but two, if they're confident they can get a return on it. This past year, Ford unveiled a new program requiring dealers to invest either $500,000 or $1.2 million if they want to continue selling electric vehicles. But that steep price tag caused over 1/3 of Ford dealers nationally to opt out of the EV market. So Section 7 of the bill establishes a program that will help franchise dealers, or that will allow franchise dealers to apply for grants of up to $40,000 to help them purchase the infrastructure required by their manufacturers to become EV ready. And those dollars will make EV certification more accessible to smaller dealers by helping to alleviate some of their financial risk. And with dealerships located on high-traffic highway corridors in all corners of the state, more EV-certified dealers means more access to charging stations by the motoring public as they cross Minnesota. So again, I appreciate you listening to my remarks, and with the budget surplus, we think it's a great time to make this one-time investment to help spur on the adoption of EVs in Minnesota and provide cleaner air to all Minnesotans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Backus. I will ask if there are any members of the public who wish to testify on the bill before we move to member discussion. Seeing none, we do have an amendment. Representative O'Driscoll, will you like to move and describe the A9 amendment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have an oral amendment that I'd like to incorporate into the A9 this afternoon. On line 1.4, between the words governor and the word must, again, 1.4 between governor and must, I would like to insert while discharging their official duties. And again, I can make sure that we've got that. Line 1.4, between governor and must, insert the words while discharging their official duties. And so that's my incorporation into the amendment this afternoon, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Chair Stephenson?
I don't have an objection.
Okay. All those in favor of Representative O'Driscoll's proposed oral amendment to the A9 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, very good. Representative O'Driscoll to the A9 as amended.
The A9 amendment, as the bill author had suggested, provides the governor an opportunity under the California Clean Car Standards that the governor is promoting in the state of Minnesota to take the lead on that by any time the governor or lieutenant governor is engaged in official duty, they would be using an electrical vehicle for their transportation.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Chair Stevenson.
I have I'd like to move my amendment to the amendment, if that's okay.
Yes, the A10 amendment. Please go ahead and describe the A10.
Madam Chair, I'm moving the A10 amendment to the amendment, which inserts language ensuring that the minority leader of the Minnesota House of Representatives must drive an electric vehicle. I just thought that I was very confident that this was just an oversight by Representative O'Driscoll, that he surely would intend for this provision to be bipartisan, and that we, want to all be invested. So I was giving the opportunity that, as a helpful suggestion, that we should add in the minority leader also. And also, I just want to clarify, it's the authors of this amendment to the amendment's intent to maybe address a comment that I think someone might be able to make, that the language would just require that the vehicle be driven, be an electric vehicle, not that the state would purchase the electric vehicle or maintain the electric vehicle for the minority leader. There's no change to the existing law about that. So it's just requiring that the minority leader drive an electric vehicle, and it's just wholly in the spirit of bipartisanship.
Madam Chair, I'm going to raise House Rule
Representative O'Driscoll.
3.2.1. Motions and
3.2.1.
propositions must be germane to the underlying amendment. Clearly, with the amendment and at the authors of the amendment to the amendment's admission, he is trying to require a minority leader, whomever that may be, at their own expense to go ahead and to purchase a vehicle. That's an electric vehicle. This clearly states that this would be a state purchase for the governor while performing their official duties. I ask that you rule that the amendment is not germane today on the amendment to the amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Representative Cleavorn.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to Representative Stevenson. I think this is a really great amendment in that Representative O'Driscoll is very nervous about it, and that I'm just having some fun, and that it refers only to the minority leader and not the majority leader. Thank you.
Representative Stevenson.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I think, and I was just going to look at my rules to Representative O'Driscoll's comment, I think Rule Point 321 only applies to floor proceedings. The rule reflects to a matter being put to the House, so it's in the context of the rule, it seems to not be applicable to committee hearings. I just wanted it to be a bipartisan spirit, Representative Cleavorn. I just thought that we have too much partisanship in this place, so that's what I thought.
Madam Chair.
Representative Liebling had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to the germaneness, I was just going to say that germaneness in committee is different, as Chair Stevenson's referring to, and it just really, it's quite loose, and it really refers to whether it's within the subject matter of the committee, so, as I recall. So I think my advice to the chair would be that indeed it is germane.
Thank you. The chair will note on the point of bipartisanship that the current Speaker of the House and the majority leader of the House already do drive electric vehicles. Representative Newbernley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that we're kind of having fun with this, but I think it is actually, the underlying amendment is actually a serious amendment. The reality is the governor and lieutenant governor have detail. They're not driving their own cars. This is not a requirement that the governor and lieutenant governor are required to purchase, own, drive their own electric vehicles. The underlying amendment is actually a serious amendment. It's part of the fleet. That's what we're talking about here. And the amendment to the amendment, well, listen, we all know that I am willing to have fun here as much as anyone. But the underlying amendment is actually a serious amendment, and the amendment to the amendment is clearly not. It literally requires like a private purchase. The minority leader does not have a detail. They don't have drivers. This would apply to the minority leader in their personal circumstances driving an electric vehicle. And like I said, I'm more willing than just about anybody to have fun around here, but the underlying amendment is actually serious, and the amendment to the amendment is not. And to Representative O'Driscoll's point, regardless of how we want to choose to apply germaneness, it's not germane.
Representative Niska.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to reinforce Representative New Brindley's point a little bit, I do think that if there is any limit to germaneness and jurisdiction in this committee, this is clearly outside of it. And just so everyone is clear, the language that this would be adding would be in section 16C, .135. Chapter 16C is entitled State Procurement. Section 16C, .135 is purchases of fuel and vehicles by state agencies. It certainly would be odd that in the Commerce Committee, we are adding into a section called purchases of fuel and vehicles by state agencies, a requirement that a specific state employee purchase a specific kind of vehicle to transport them around when they are not doing their state duties. So again, it is kind of funny. I do agree with that, Representative Stephenson, but it's not really a serious amendment to an amendment within the Commerce Committee on this proposal.
Thank you. Members, we are still discussing Representative O'Driscoll's question of germaneness, and to that, Representative Cagle? You have a question to the amendment?
Not germaneness.
Ah, okay. All right. Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. If there was, again, I understand, I've been around here long enough to know why these amendments come up on this, but is the governor at the admission of the chair and the author of this bill who is championing this, and I'm giving the governor the opportunity to be able to put the rubber on the road, if you will, and do what needs to be done to keep his plans moving. If this were a serious amendment, it might also include the office of the minority leader, the office of the majority leader, the office of the Speaker of the House, because those positions are occupied by different persons and personalities over time. I think that this is, again, shouldn't be considered a germane amendment. We should just move to the A9 amendment and take it at as was amended.
Mr. Chair, any thoughts?
Madam Chair, I think that the amendment to the amendment is not out of order under Rule 3.21. I'm happy to discuss the merits of the A9 when we get to that. I have thoughts about it, but I don't think Rule 3.21 is applicable to the Commerce Committee, and so I'd ask you just to find the point of order not well taken and then move to a vote on the amendment to the amendment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since it is the chair's discretion, the A10 amendment is germane, and we'll continue on with the conversation. Members, Representative Cagle, did you have a question to the A10 amendment?
I guess, thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is kind of to the, well, A9, A10, if they both get passed. Does Section 2, Subdivision 3, cover the governor's fleet?
Chair Stephenson.
One moment while I get to what you were. Yes, Madam Chair, Representative Cagle, I believe that it does because it's all vehicles owned by the state government. And I looked over at House Research, who seemed to agree with me, generally speaking.
So,
Representative Cagle.
so Madam Chair, the A9 then kind of seems redundant. So I guess that's just my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Cleaborn.
I have a question, and maybe House Research can genuinely answer this question for me. It is my understanding that when the governor and lieutenant governor are traveling, they travel with the state troopers, and therefore the vehicle in which they travel in their official capacity is a law enforcement vehicle. Is that correct?
Mr. Eliff.
Madam Chair, Representative Cleaborn, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Eliff. Representative Cleaborn, any?
No.
Okay. Right.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. We are talking about the A9 amendment. I think the A10 is before the committee, but I think people want to talk about the A9. So let's just, I'll withdraw the A10. Point made. I actually, and while we're here, I'm just going to talk to the A9 because with respect to what Representative New Brindley and Representative O'Driscoll are saying, I disagree. The A9 amendment is not a serious amendment, and it's a political amendment. It's trying to make a political point at the governor. It's not an effort to make. I don't think it's an effort to make serious policy because I think the discussion has already been indicating the governor's fleet, to the extent it's a state-owned vehicle, is already covered by this section of law. What this amendment does do something, actually, and you can see it in the end of line 1.4 and line 1.5, whose purchase may not be rejected by the commissioner under paragraph B. And, you know, when you look at paragraph B of that bill, it starts on line 2.7. It says that the commissioner doesn't have to follow the preference above if the vehicle is incapable of performing the duty that's established, or if the total life cycle cost of ownership is more than 10% higher than the next vehicle type. So what this amendment would do is say, doesn't matter if it can't do the job, doesn't matter if it costs a lot more, the governor has to drive an electric vehicle, which is just a way of trying to make sort of, in my view, a political point. I think the governor's vehicle is already covered under this section, as it should be if it's a state-owned vehicle.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. The approach that we've laid out in the bill is the approach that should be followed for any vehicle the state owns, which is that it should follow this preference order, starting with EVs and moving through hybrids and moving through, you know, alternative fuel vehicles before getting to conventional fuel vehicles, unless those vehicles can't do the job. You know, if you're in a remote part of Minnesota or you have to drive really, really far, or whatever the type of vehicle isn't available in electric, or it's just cost prohibitive to do that. That's the right approach to do this. I don't think we should be making political points in statute. I'd ask for a no vote on the A9 amendment.
Chair Stephenson has withdrawn the A10 amendment to the amendment and given his statement on the underlying A9 amendment. Members, any discussion to the A9 amendment?
As amended.
As amended. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of the A9 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No. The motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted. Members, any discussion to House File 414? Representative Liebling.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And so Chair Stephenson, I really like this bill and I like the approach, and I'm really glad that you sat down with Ms. Bacchus and got something done, made lemons out of lemonade, or made lemonade out of lemons, I should say. But the one concern I have, and I don't know, maybe she's the person to sort of address this. I as a consumer, have found and have been reading, it's very hard to find an electric vehicle. And I wonder if she has any comment. I think consumers, I don't even think it's the extra cost. I think they're not available in Minnesota. And my family's had one on order for a very long time. We don't know if we're ever going to get it. So I just wonder, and the bill, I don't know if Section 2 here accounts for that also, Representative Stephenson, about whether they're even available in Minnesota. I mean, I think I'm speaking for a lot of consumers. I think a lot of consumers want an EV and cannot get their hands on one. Could Ms. Bacchus, maybe if she has any insight into that, give us a little bit?
Ms. Bacchus.
Thank you again, Madam Chair and Representative Liebling. I would agree that electric vehicles have been hard to find, but so have all cars the last couple of years, just because of the inventory shortages due to the chip shortage. And I know electric vehicles actually have more microchips in them than an internal combustion engine vehicle, so that makes it more difficult. But I also do think that the manufacturers, in determining where to send vehicles, prioritize whether it's a ZEV state or whether it's a state that has some sort of incentive on the books. I know other states like Utah that doesn't have a ZEV mandate, but they have a healthy rebate program, get more EVs. So it's things that help encourage the market. You're more likely to get them here.
Representative Liebling.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you, Madam Chair. And, well, I guess I would just, my observation is that there are plenty of gasoline vehicles available, plenty of them. There just aren't a lot of hybrids, and there aren't a lot of EVs. And I know as I was doing all my searching, I've often thought about the fact that the automobile dealers fought tooth and nail to not have the clean car rule. And it's frustrating. So I guess I would just thank you for that. I hope this helps, but I guess I would just mention as the bill moves that to Chair Stephenson, I don't know if there doesn't seem to be an exemption for here if you just can't really get them. You might want to maybe tweak the bill and add that later on. But, I really hope that consumers are going to be able to get EVs because I think the demand really is there. Thank you.
Chair Stevenson?
I appreciate the feedback, Chair Liebling, and the bill's going next to the State Government Finance Committee, which this section of law that you're talking about is squarely in the domain of, and so it might be a good time to think about whether a further exemption under paragraph B there is necessary to achieve it, or whether the two that already exist cover it. And I'll have some conversations and think about that, and we have the opportunity in Representative Cleavorne's committee to make any changes that are necessary to that end.
Representative O'Driscoll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 3 areas I'd like to visit with the author on. The first one, if we can go to page 3, subdivision 2A, line 3.6. Again, page 3, subdivision 2A, line 3.6. And the heading there is dealer training electric vehicles. And my question is where it says a new motor vehicle dealer licensed under this chapter that operates under the agreement of a franchise agreement and so forth. My question is, do we define what motor vehicle is in statute, or I don't see it in this particular bill? Because when I see motor vehicle, I'm thinking about a vehicle that has a gas or combustion engine in it, and that when we talk about the idea of potentially there could be a dealer that has no combustion engines and only has electric, which would be exempt from the rule because they're not a new franchise that's coming forward with a motor vehicle. So we are kind of backwards a little bit in what we want to do in the bill here, or what the author's outcome is, I think.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll. Maybe we should go to Mr. Eliff with House Research.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at Section 168 right now. Motor vehicle is defined in Section 168.002, subdivision 18.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Could he share that with the committee for edification?
Mr. Eliff.
Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, I will. It's rather long. Paragraph A, motor vehicle means any self-propelled vehicle designed and originally manufactured to operate primarily on highways and not operated exclusively upon railroad tracks. It includes any vehicle propelled or drawn by a self-propelled vehicle and includes vehicles known as trackless trolleys that are propelled by electric power obtained from overhead trolley wires, but not operated upon rails. It continues, paragraph B, motor vehicle includes an all-terrain vehicle only if the all-terrain vehicle, 1, has at least 4 wheels, 2, is owned and operated by a physically disabled person, and 3, displays both disability plates and a physically disabled certificate issued under Section 169.345. Paragraph C, motor vehicle does not include an all-terrain vehicle except 1, an all-terrain vehicle described in paragraph B, or 2, an all-terrain vehicle licensed as a motor vehicle before August 1st, 1985. The owner may continue to license an all-terrain vehicle described in Clause 2 as a motor vehicle until it is conveyed or otherwise transferred to another owner, is destroyed, or fails to comply with the registration and licensing requirements of this chapter. Paragraph D, motor vehicle does not...
Madam Chair. As enlightening as it is, I think we got our answer here.
Okay. Chair Stevenson.
I do want to just note that, Representative Driscoll, I think you've got the wrong defined term here anyway, because new motor vehicle dealer is a defined term. So this isn't a new motor vehicle where motor vehicle is the defined term. Under paragraph L in the definition section of statute 168.27, new motor vehicle means a motor vehicle other than described in paragraph N. Paragraph N is used motor vehicle dealer. So this is referencing not a new motor vehicle dealer, but a dealer of new motor vehicles. Does that make sense?
Representative O'Driscoll.
Is it not?
Strangely enough, I do speak Stephenson.
It's a valuable skill.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To my second set of questions, page 5, lines 5.11 through 5.14. We're talking about customer and utility-owned electric vehicle charger stations. My question is, what's the definition of a customer in this particular part of the bill?
Chair Stevenson.
Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll. So this is in the section related to transportation electrification, which is then housed in one of the energy statutes. We do have some definition language at the beginning of this. I don't see customer there, but in this case, because of the context of talking about utilities, we're talking about a customer of the utility, I believe. I'm looking over at Mr. Eliff.
Mr. Eliff.
And he nodded.
Okay.
So.
All right, very good. Representative O'Driscoll.
Because when I read that, I was wondering if it wasn't a member-owned cooperative.
Chair Stevenson.
Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, I believe that this section of law is applicable only to our investor-owned utilities. So I do not believe that it would include cooperatives.
Looks like Mr. Eliff is ready to respond as well. Mr. Eliff?
Because it's it's in the public utilities section of law.
Madam Chair, on line 4.24, it talks about a public, this entire subdivision, a public utility must file a transportation electrification plan.
Thank you, Mr. Eliff. Representative O'Driscoll.
And then the third point that I'd like to raise right now, Madam Chair, is with this whole idea of the chargers and the like, is it the intent of this language to allow utility-owned and operated EV chargers and then pass the cost on to the rate holders, or are we going to charge that back to the users of those charging stations? In other words, are the ratepayers in general going to be asked as a part of their rates to subsidize the EV stations, or are those going to be, if you will, hosted by the utilities but paid for by the users?
Chair Stevenson.
Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, so forgive me for what will be a complex answer to what maybe seemed like a simple question. But the answer is what this area of law allows utilities to do is put together this transportation electrification plan. And that plan could include, plans to subsidize or otherwise provide incentives or create all the infrastructure that you see listed out in the bill. They put together that plan and they bring it to the Public Utilities Commission. In the Public Utilities Commission, acting sort of as it does as the regulator of these entities and frankly the watchdog for the ratepayers of Minnesota, will determine whether those investments are reasonable and prudent. In other words, whether they're in the best interests of the ratepayers of Minnesota. So when you ask, does it just allow it to go to the ratepayers? Not really, because it has to go through the PUC. The PUC has to approve it and has to have that reasonable and prudent standard. You have to prove that from the PUC perspective that's justified. It creates an avenue ultimately for ratepayer investment into the electrification of the transportation system. And I think there's really good reason to do that. But it's going to have to pass the PUC test.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Stevenson, I'm getting very concerned because I'm absolutely understanding what you're talking about here.
You should, yeah. I'd be concerned.
But to that point, yes, everything that has to go through infrastructure right on down the line for every public-owned utility before the PUC. The question still remains, could the ratepayers be asked to pay through the approval of the PUC for stations that may or may not be used by those customers because they may be member-owned cooperatives that are in that area, driving into St. Paul, let's say, and you plug in, you are at that service is being allowed or convenience is being made available at the ratepayers of XL because XL has the city of Minneapolis, where you could have been in a rural area where you have a cooperative and you drive into work and you're receiving a subsidy through the ratepayers in the XL footprint.
Chair Stevenson.
Madam Chair, Representative O'Driscoll, well, I want to start by saying I think the PUC does a great job of acting in the interests of Minnesotans and protecting ratepayers. And I think we see headlines to that effect on the regular, where they are not knocking down requests by utilities and shaving down rate increases. And so I trust that the PUC will only approve deals that are proposals that are reasonable and prudent and that are in the best interest of Minnesota ratepayers. Your question is, could a utility create a charging station using ratepayer funds in an area that then the charging station then gets used by someone who isn't a ratepayer. That is conceivable, but Xcel is not in the business of giving away electricity. So I would very much expect that any proposal that Xcel brings forward, and Mr. Pearson's walking up here, so I don't know, maybe he's going to contradict me and say Xcel just wants to give away all of their electricity. Maybe that's testimony. I don't think so. But if they were to do that, I would expect that they would want to charge for their electricity, and I would expect that the PUC would only authorize the construction of such a facility if it was in the best interest of Minnesota, if it was reasonable and prudent. But Mr. Pearson's a lot smarter than I am on this stuff, so I defer to him.
Mr. Pearson.
Well, thank you. Just a clarifying comment. One thing that I think would be helpful in understanding as far as how we look at it is Minnesota law allows the resale of electricity for the purposes of fueling a motor vehicle to be marked up, so to speak. So, for example, typically that would violate the utility service territory. But in this case, say, for example, that we provided some help to a gas station owner to put infrastructure in. That gas station owner put charging equipment in. That owner can then take what we will charge the owner, which is regulated under the PUC, and then change the price to the consumer. So that is allowed under Minnesota law. So when you work with service stations and others, they are thinking about, well, what does that mean? So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind as we're thinking about the questions you're raising.
Representative O'Driscoll.
Given the interest of time and others who may have questions, I'll dispense with any further questions at this time.
Right. Members, any further comments or questions to House File 413? Seeing none, I will go to Chair Stephenson for final comments.
I appreciate the great discussion. It's a good bill. Ask for a yes vote.
Right. Chair Stephenson renews his motion that House File 413 be recommended to be re-referred to the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
No.
The motion prevails. House File 413 is recommended to be re-referred to the State and Local Government Finance and Policy Committee. And with nothing further on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.